So why don't we begin? It's 7:03. I call to order the meeting of the Wellfare Master Plan Steering Committee. And thank you all for attending. So we'll start off. I'm just going to go and read through the list of members so we get a recorded attendance. So respond if you are here. So Dean?
Here.
Ashley is not going to be able to join us tonight. Myself here. Carrie?
Here.
Andrew?
Here.
And Janet, I don't see. John?
Here.
Jennifer? Jen?
Here.
I don't see Margaret yet. So, and Glenn's at the select board meeting, so he's going to try to join us later. And Mike is not here. And Donald.
Donnell may be joining us later. I think he's actually running a kitchen conversation right now. So.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that's good. And then Katie.
Here.
And I want to also welcome Judy and Fiora and Delphine. And thank you for all the support that you're giving to the committee. So our first item on the agenda is the community engagement update. And first, Judy, do you want to give us an update then on the review, the questions, the comments, and or at least a status on what you've been doing on your analysis?
I think we've kind of done, we're sort of on hold right now, Phil, because we're waiting for the results of the kitchen conversations. The plan is that when we have that information, we're going to use that and the information from the survey and Miro and the November 17th meeting to draft a vision statement for the plan and kind of the overarching goals for the whole plan. But we haven't done that yet because we were waiting for the kitchen conversation content to be completed.
Okay, and we have the 17-page that we have the study that you had sent out that people can be reviewing.
Yeah, we do. We already did give you the write-up on the meeting on the 17th. And I think part of what we were hoping to get tonight was a bit of a sense from you folks about, do you think we missed anything? Did we leave something out important? When you read that summary, does it sound like the meeting you were at? Did we miss anything, I guess is the question.
So does anybody have comments or remarks? Katie?
You're on mute, Katie. The dogs are fine.
You say that now. So I thought it included more than what we heard. So that's not a bad thing, but for example, and this was a question and it was more just a point of clarification for me. So when we did our notes, we kept them, the group I facilitated, Jean Kenny was our note taker and she's very precise and she kept things really on target like we were asked to do. So we were asked to limit it. And I think maybe you meant limited for the presentation. We took it as limited for everything. So we didn't include everything that was said. Whereas when I read those notes, I thought there were things included that weren't said at the podium as the summary. So did we do it wrong?
You're on mute, Daphne.
Thanks, Judy. So the summary was based on the written notes that were submitted, not what was
So the
said
written
at
notes
podium.
must have had more in them
The
than,
full set of written notes.
okay. So our group took it differently. We summarized both when we presented and when we did our notes. We had a lot more in them.
Well, that's too bad. Maybe you can send them along and we can update.
I don't think we have them at this point. It's been a long time, so. That's all, that clarifies it. So thank you for clarifying it.
So just to follow up one more step on that, Katie, was there something specific that you felt was left out of the summary that you thought was important to include?
Well, it was not even a situation that it was more that we were told to narrow it down to so many points, and that's what we did. So like we brainstormed and don't quote me on this because this is just an example. So let's say we came up with 7 ideas. We were told to have 3, so we crossed 4 off. We did not present them in any way, and we didn't include them.
That was just for the report back.
Yeah, and a lot of them were really good. So I think, so I had the big sheets,
Mhm.
and I had folded them and put them in my office desk drawer. So, but I'm not sure if after I typed them, I threw it away or not. So I'll check tomorrow at work. If I have them, I'll send.
Please do.
I'll send what I have, but I don't know if I have them or not, but I'll look and see.
If you
All
do,
right.
that would be great. We'd be happy
Okay.
to incorporate them,
Thank you.
especially if they're good ideas.
Yeah, every idea is a good idea, right?
That's right.
Any other comments or observations? So now we also want to talk about the kitchen conversations. And so, and again, thank you those who have been able to schedule one. I think it'd be good for us to maybe first, just get any of your experiences, any observations, for those people who are still yet to do one, are there any best practices or any advice you want to give?
Well, it would also be helpful to know who's doing them, because I'm
Who's
not
doing them.
sure, who's actually, I know Katie did, and you were right out of the gate with it, but I'm not sure who all has done them or is planning to do them before the 31st.
So you have the one that Patrick and I did at the senior center.
Yep.
And Andrew did one.
Andrew's, Phil's, Katie's. I know Andrew has another one coming up. And then I will follow up for the notes from Donnell. That's all I have at the moment.
Jen,
I gotta get you ours.
Yeah, so I have a what not to do. I tried to combine a monthly meeting that I have with and having a kitchen conversation at the end. And it turns out that the people that I picked were people who had already participated either through the survey or through the community forum. So that my suggestion would be make sure your target audience has not already been targeted.
good point. Well, thank you.
So maybe that's a sign, Jen, that a lot of people have already done it, right? Carrie?
So I was looking into reaching out to some of the parents of our EL students in particular, and for a lot of logistical reasons, an actual conversation, it was not really able to be organized in the time frame. However, we did get the questions translated and sent out to families, and so I'm hoping to get those responses back very shortly and compile them and send them on.
That would be super. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for doing that, Carrie, because that is actually a good outreach that we haven't done.
I've
So-
got
John?
two pending due to weather, COVID, and other conflicts. They've both been delayed. And I guess I'm concerned about this 31st. Seems like a kind of an artificial deadline. I think it's more important to get these done, whether they're 2 days late or not. We're going to try to get together this weekend and get those two completed. But I don't know the urgency. I guess you want to get the process finished, but I think it's more important to get a good, robust set of real information to write your report on.
Well, we also agree, but it wasn't an artificial deadline. It's actually been out there since November, or the end of November. But I would just say we have to get the vision and goals done. Because there's a lot to do on this plan. You're just at the very beginning of this process. And so we need to be able to keep moving. We have a contractual obligation to the town to get this done. So I would say if you are able to complete those meetings, just looking at my calendar here, by the 4th of February, then we can consider it. But after that, we can't. We just can't. 4th of February is that
question.
Friday.
I have a question. Are these being done on Zoom or are these being done live?
Live, in my case, live.
Because perhaps on Zoom, it could be more efficient. Could be done more quickly.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that can be more. These people, they're volunteers, and we're inhibited by government being locked down and a lot of things out of our control. So would appreciate finger pointing this way, and we're doing our best. And again, I differ from both of you. I think the data is more important than your deadlines. And
Okay.
so I'm going to proceed anyway. If you don't take them, I'll give them to the planning board. I'll let them have the reports and the comments. And I'm doing the same thing, by the way, the sewer and water commissioners, since we're going to put some blame out there.
John, I don't think anybody's blaming anyone. by the way.
We weren't contacted properly. And you sent memos to a secretary in town hall, and then that got distributed just in a packet. We get of 2 feet of reports and data and got lost, and the commissioners couldn't really respond. So we're revisiting that and getting all the comments from the sewer and water commissioners. And it's not going to be done till our next meeting, but we're going to do it anyway, and I'm going to submit it. So, I don't care what your date is, you're going to get it after our next meeting. And that's very important to the town. We're the commissioners, we're the elected commissioners, sewer and water, and we're going to give our input.
That's
And if
fine.
you make a deadline that's too short, it's going to be put in anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
John, I don't think anybody's trying to blame anyone on this, by the way. We're all
It's
trying.
not blame, it's artificial deadlines. A lot of people in government, Phil, are involved in process. It's all process, but that isn't good research. It doesn't get good results. So we got a bunch of volunteers here. You got bad weather, you got a COVID, you got town shut down, everything's locked down.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of difficulties in a short time frame. I appreciate there's a nice bow you want to put on your consulting report, but you have to be a little more flexible on the timing. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, but I just want to, first I want to thank Judy for being flexible to, you're giving us till February 4th, you said,
Yeah,
Judy.
the 4th is fine.
Yeah, no, so thank you for extending it and being flexible. And John, I think the reality is that we do have a schedule and we don't want to miss anything, and we're all going to do what we can to make sure we don't. But on the other hand, there has to be a time to get this process finished. And, we need to all work to try to help do that. And I think that's what we're all trying to do. So
Unfortunately, Phil, you hit it in the middle of the Christmas holidays, the New Year holidays, COVID, lockdowns, and a lot of other things. So you have to be more flexible. That's what I'm telling you.
And I think Judy is being very flexible, and we thank her for that. And I want to thank all the committee members for, doing what you can to go out and over the holidays and trying to get the conversations. So just I am also looking to do a Zoom conversation as well before the 4th, maybe before the 31st. So that was my plan for the 31st. So
Thank you.
I'll get that to you.
I also wanted to say that it's really appreciated, all of the effort that and we do understand volunteering is really taxing. It's on top of everything else in life. And John, we also highly value your input as the Suet Commission. That is very important to town. So in no way would we want
Thank
you to
you.
think that we didn't think that was important. It's critical. It's a critical piece of infrastructure.
It's got to be part of the report, is my point,
It of course does.
irrespective of how important somebody thinks it is.
I did hear back from that group and they do want to schedule it, so I'll have one more.
Oh, that's great.
And does anybody else have any other comments on how the conversations have gone? The slides that worked out well, the material that Judy and her team prepared.
So Donnell is joining now. You might be able to get a, fresh perspective
Firsthand.
of what's just done.
And Donald, thank you for attending. I just want to go on the record that you're here. So now we have eight members of the committee in attendance. And also want to recognize Stephen Detola. And Stephen works with Patrick. Do you want to introduce Stephen, Patrick?
Yeah, Steven's new in the office. He's the permit coordinator. He's primarily working with the Zoning Board of Appeals, but he's also going to be helping me out on some projects as well. So I asked Stephen to join us.
Yeah, so thank you, Stephen, for joining us. Then one other thing I wanted to do under community engagement update is I did want to update us or ask Katie if you would update us on the logo.
Yes, and I apologize for the dog in the background.
Okay.
Fine.
So the logo, I think that whole process went great. Walpole High School Art Department deserves accolades. We had our votes come in and we chose first, second, and third place. I don't have the names in front of me, but Kara Morris was the first place winner. And we received the, go ahead, Patrick.
I was just going to say, I don't know if Judy or Fiona is controlling the meeting. I can share the screen, show the logo. That helps.
I can give you a screen share. Hold on. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah.
So
All right.
it was pointed out to me at the planning board meeting that we should change the year. So I'm sure if I reach out to the art department, they will tweak that for us. That being said,
Why is that?
Why?
so
Because it's
finish
not for
in-
now, it's for 20 years from now, right?
but we finish in
2022.
October, late October, right? The timeline?
It could be 23.
Yeah, so it should probably say 23. We can talk about that going
Sure.
forward. But that being said, so Kara Morris created, that was our first place winner. And I think I've covered it at prior meetings, so I don't want to beat it to death, but the art department was wonderful. The class was wonderful. The teachers were fantastic. And the production, I mean, what we had to choose from, in my opinion, was high quality. And we had great choices. So I think it was definitely a positive win-win for everyone involved.
Katie, have you considered ways of giving public accolades to Kara Morris
So
and the others?
the Carrie sent a letter to school committee, and I believe she can address that, but I believe school committees either has or is going to recognize them.
And we're gonna
It was in
send
the
a
high
letter.
school,
Planning
it was
board.
in the high school newsletter, the weekly newsletter that goes out. And the planning board has written a letter that's being typed up acknowledging the whole class by name and thanking them for their participation. And Phil had suggested that we also do that from our committee so that they have both of those letters.
Yeah.
And that's the process.
We could also put a blurb in the free newspaper, what's it, the Hometown Weekly? We could always put the logo, a little announcement with the logo. That might be nice.
I think that would be a very good suggestion. Also give a little more visibility to the master plan and steering committee.
Exactly.
I can take care of that.
I don't know if you want to invite any of those youngsters to attend one of your meetings and be sort of like a youth liaison if they're interested.
So I think that would mean more if it was in person. I think with the Zoom, it just loses
Yeah.
all oomph, in my opinion.
It
But
does
we
lose-
our planning board meetings are still meeting. We could always have them at the planning board meeting and we could invite any members of the steering committee that feel comfortable coming. So maybe that's something we should do. We could
Yeah.
recognize them publicly. That way, they're there in person and they'd be on cable.
I agree about the oomph.
Yeah. Especially for high school kids, it's,
So we can work that out with, Katie and I are both on the planning committee, and also we can see, what should come from the master plan or committee as well. So, but again, what a great job they did. And Carrie?
I was just going to say, I know the school committee is planning to invite them to a meeting to be recognized, and I will find out which date that's happening so we avoid conflicts, because I know master plan and school committee often meet on the same evenings.
Yeah, and thank you for reaching out to the school committee too.
Sure.
Harry, will that be in person?
Our meetings are in person.
Do you think if somebody can get a picture?
Absolutely.
I think that would be lovely to have.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Thank you.
And again, thanks to Katie for coordinating this, and it was really a very
really, I
positive.
deserve no thanks. It was,
Positive,
they did all the work, so.
Still,
Mr. Chairman, I just noticed, obviously, with Donnell joining the meeting, and Donnell, you had reached out and mentioned doing a kitchen conversation right before this. How did that go?
That's why I came in late. Oh my God. It was long. I didn't think it was going to be that long. I think we knocked it out well within 2 hours, and it went 2 hours and 15 minutes or whatever. So it went well. I mean, it was kind of ended up being with people that have been in town for 30 or 40 years, or second or third generation from town.
Yep.
So, you know, it went well. I mean, I don't know. I just got off of it, so I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Still haven't put all my notes down and jotted everything down and everything. But you know, it was interesting. I mean, the thing I got back and was hard to do is the problem with this town is we do this master plan thing and then goddamn nothing happens from it. That's what I kept getting from everybody. It's like we plan, but it never happens. And that was kind of a big thing I got back out of that. You know, so it was interesting. It was good to hear everybody, and everybody walked away and, you know, good spirits about it. And, you know, everyone, so it was good. It was lively debate.
Good. You did that over Zoom too, right?
Yeah, I did that Zoom with 8 people.
How did that work, or how was that?
Well, you know, a lot of the stuff, the way it was set up was done to do live. And so what I did is I took the 5 questions. Yep. And I gave everyone the 5. I gave everyone the 5 sheets ahead of time through Zoom, so they saw what I was going to ask. And then I sat and jot down all the notes per person from questions 1 through 5. I made up 7 of those individual packets with the 5 questions. And then as we were going through, I tried to go in order with each of the 8 people right down the line, and kind of went through that with everybody, and everyone kept giving input. And I think the way I did it was good, because there wasn't a lot of people kept expanding on it. They just didn't agree with the person in front of them. They kind of said, yeah, that too, but also this. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of different ideas, and not just storming about one or bitching about one. You know, there was a lot of different, you know, it kept growing, I guess is what I was going to say. I figured with the discussion going the way it was, we were just going to focus on one thing, and they were going to bitch about that or really want to get this. But there was a lot of ideas between, you know, the 7 people with the, you know, with the 5 questions. So it was interesting.
Great. That's really great.
Awesome.
So,
I think that's just
with regard to the people saying that, you know, nothing is ever done, remind me, when was the last master plan completed?
2000, Katie? 2004.
2004. And has anyone kept formal track of what was completed that was in the master plan until now?
So there was an implementation committee back in 2009, 8. I know Phil and Katie, if you can have more information on that committee. And so they did do a review of recommendations of what had been completed, and then expanded upon some of those recommendations as well.
And that was one of the questions I was asked was, well, what happened with the last master plan? How much of the stuff in the last master plan got done? And I'm like, I'm not really sure about that.
Well, that's why I'm asking. Maybe you could send that to us, and we could
have it.
You know,
A lot was done, because all the police station, the fire station, the library, the fields, the school is on.
A lot of infrastructure stuff too.
So a lot of, as far as the physical things, a lot of those were achieved. I think all of them, maybe.
Well, it'd be good to have, you know, for you all to have a script to be able to respond to that question.
We've been trying to pull that together, Daphne.
Patrick, didn't you send that? Am I wrong? Was it you or was it Pat Shields? So I received that, and I'm not sure if it was before the.
Was it the implementation committee work, or what was?
I'm not sure, but I received it maybe before we hired the consultant. I'll look back. So I wasn't sure if it was from that or if it was from the steering committee. So I'll look back, because I received it via email, so I can forward it. Maybe I'll forward it to Pat, and it would be cleaner that way if he sends it. But I believe it was available online too, if you just searched on the town's website. But I'm glad
it is available online on the town's website.
Yeah.
I will say, like, internally, you know, Fiona's been contacting me I know in the fall to kind of go review and talk to our couple department heads about sections of the 2004 master plan and the 2009 implementation committee update. So still working to try to kind of get that together. Obviously, some people that are with the town now weren't here in 2004 or 2009, but we're piecemealing trying to get that together of what's been done from those recommendations.
It's really common for people to say nothing was done. And then you find out a lot was done. And sometimes it just takes some public education to say, well, there were things that didn't get done and there are reasons for that, but look at all the things the town did do. And I think it's important for people to know that.
Well, to be honest, I mean, I took part in the last one and I know those buildings were achieved, but I didn't think of it as being achieved because of the master plan. I think to Danelle's point, a lot of people just don't know what's in that because nobody really reads it. Do you know what I mean? Unless they have a
I
focus
myself
or
included,
interest.
Katie.
So I think it will be great that we'll have an active, usable, friendly web resource that people can go and look at. So
it's a good
maybe
idea.
that'll help change things,
That's a great point. I'm just thinking, 2004, I don't know how up to date the town's website was to even have something like that that's easily accessible. So I think obviously better technology, better resources right now. Hopefully that's a lot more user friendly in the future.
Yeah, and one thing we might want to do is look at what was completed, because some of the things that were mentioned and not done might be things we
I think if people knew that more things are getting done that are on the master plan, that they feel like their participation in the master plan might be more meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. That's exactly what my point was.
And I just want to note that one change in the master plan is that in the 2004, it was recommending a campus center for the municipal buildings down where the field is behind the current town hall. And that was I think one of the adjustments they made in 2009 because of water issues, that's where they changed where the new municipal buildings would be, which is why none of them are down, at least not, there's not a campus type of layout that they had recommended at the time. That looked really attractive, but again, didn't turn out to be practical. And that's why it's important that when we end our work, we definitely want to recommend to the select board that they appoint a steering committee, an implementation committee to help work through this. Because no matter what we recommend, there's going to be changes to it over time as depending upon the current situation, and the plan, will be very easy to modify in that regard. But then someone needs to be looking over that and making sure that things are, are being followed. When we set out the implementation.
There are other things too, in addition to a committee, that kind of need to happen to sort of institutionalize the way plan implementation is done in town, that I think we can draw from the experience of other towns, at least, bring some suggestions.
That would be good.
Best for your town.
Yeah, no, that'd be good. I think like somebody else mentioned, there's certainly a lot more visibility, I think, to master plans now than there was, 20 years ago. Does anyone else have any other comments about the community engagement process? Anything else before we go to the next topic? So our next topic is the inventory and assessment report. And this is the next step in our process, doing the visioning, and when Judy and her team will come back to us with the summary of the existing conditions based on all the work that they did. And Judy, I'm going to talk a little bit about the work groups, but first, do you want to say any more about that and kind of give a little more of an overview or just a refresher for the?
No, I mean, it's like the existing conditions assessment. This is who you are today and the different elements of the plan. And to the extent that we can kind of say, so how did you get to this point? There's a bit of that too, but it's really a picture of who you are today. And as part of that, based on what we see and what we've heard, and what we've observed, some initial sense from us about what we think maybe some issues and opportunities might be in the plan for you to then respond to and say, you consultants are crazy, you don't know what you're talking about, or gee, we really think you're right. But we're going to be submitting those sometime around mid-February. And we need to make sure that the committee is going to be ready to review those documents. And so the review process at this point is really, it's a factual one. It's, I'm kind of a fanatic about documenting where we get information, so at least people know where it came from. And so we're going to be asking you guys to read the documents, look at the maps, the material that comes with them. And if you think we're missing something, by all means, we want to know. If you think that we have something wrong, we want to know. So be gentle with us, because one of the great mistakes I most hate making in a master plan report early on is calling something a street that's actually known locally as a road. So when you see things like that, we just want to know what's in error. But if you think there's some additional data or something we should have, you'll have a form. We use what's called the comments resolution matrix to collect comments on these documents. And it's actually a very helpful form because, number one, it means that we get the feedback back from people in a sort of systematic way. But it also is a form that we use then to report back to you, this is what we did with your comment. So you'll have that form for each one of those sections. And if you think there's something missing, you'll have an opportunity to tell us in the form, we think there's information you need, and here's the source. Because we've probably done about as much research as I think anybody's going to be able to do on this team without some additional help from the town. So if there's information you think we don't have, by all means, tell us, but tell us where to get it. Or better yet, even give it to us. So, that's what's coming. When you get the existing condition reports, you'll also get that comments resolution matrix. And that was, I think, the genesis of the discussion about putting together some small working groups of people on the committee to kind of help review those documents and help us get them right. So we can then move on to sort of the next big pieces of this, which is, what are the goals for the individual elements? What should those be? Those come out of the overarching vision and goals for the plan as a whole. So, that's why I said we need to kind of complete the initial engagement process here so that we have all that information from the kitchen conversations, the survey, et cetera. That forms the basis for the overarching vision for the master plan and the goals, but then there's goals for each element. So if you can kind of picture sort of peeling back layers of an onion, that's kind of what we're doing. We're sort of getting to the heart of the matter. Once those existing condition reports are corrected and they're kind of put in final form, we're going on to, so this is kind of the direction of the plan. Based on your input, we'll have another community forum to talk about goals for the elements of the plan, kind of present to people what we think the major findings are of that process, and then continue to work on, recommendations and so forth going into the summer. So right now, we're just trying to get the existing conditions right. So that's what's coming next.
So the purpose of the work groups, and by the way, I want to thank everybody for submitting your areas of interest. So the purpose was to ensure that each of these different elements in the plan is giving a good review, a thorough review. So, but again, everybody can review everything. So there's nothing that anybody is not going to get. Everybody's going to get everything. So if you're not in a particular work group, it doesn't mean you can't look at every other section, because the only thing we're asking, and this is for the sake of Judy and her team, so they don't get bombarded with changes, is that we want, if you're not on a work group and you see a change, you submit it to the work group. Mm-hmm. And that way they can filter out duplicates before it goes to Judy. Right. That'll save a lot of work on her end. So that's one of the purposes of work group. And the second purpose is even though everyone might look at everything, time is certainly, it can be challenging for each of us. So we want to make sure that as you get this large document, that each of the elements is being given, again, a adequate review by each work group, so that if you are limited in time, at least you make sure to do the area that you signed up for. Mm-hmm. So we want to go through what those assignments are. And I just want to first say that it turned out to be a little bit of a challenging exercise. Patrick's going to share his screen. So first of all, the first thing we did in working with Judy is that we started out with the 10 groups, and we consolidated that into 6 groups. and one of the reasons for doing that is each of these meetings has to be run as under an open meeting law. So they need to be run with an agenda and with a meeting minutes, and Patrick is willing to help with that. Second, a lot of the areas are actually related. So it didn't make sense to keep them separate when they're actually, there's a lot of dependencies, interdependencies, and in the state state law, the law that sets out the elements actually combine some of them already. We split them apart, or Judy did, because that was the way the town had asked. And also it made good sense as far as laying out the results. But so let me go through what we came up with. And so the process was that I met with Patrick and Judy, and we took all of your preferences 1, 2, and 3, and tried to follow through on that. Now, what we did also was look at what town board or town area that you were representing. So we also wanted to make sure that we had those, that we were taking advantage of, that you were coming from whatever committee or board that was your expertise, and we wanted to also try to have you be in that area. So most of them have 2 people assigned to each. There are 2 of the areas where we have, or 2 of the work groups where we have 3 people, and that's partly because they're in some ways they may be more broader. And also when we combined the 2 groups together, it brought more views together. So the land use and zoning is Katie, Ashley, and myself. It seemed to make sense to have the 2 planning board members on that committee, and Ashley is a good addition to that. On the economic development and housing, so we combined economic development and housing, and the reason for doing that is that economic development is often driven by housing, so they're related in a way that they need to support each other. So Dono and Janet and Andrews are on that one. Andrew is from the Housing Partnership and has a lot of knowledge of housing, so that makes sense. And Danielle and Janet had expressed interest in one or both of those areas. In public facilities, service, energy, and transportation, it made sense to have John there representing the sewer and water, and have Glenn there representing the select board, because that is our municipal buildings. In community health and open space and recreation, and again, those are the 2. Let me make that clear, by the way. So we combined public facilities, service, and energy with transportation. I didn't make that clear. Those are the two areas, 2 elements combined. The next one, community health, was combined with open space and recreation, and that was Mike McGrath and Carrie. And then we combined natural resources with cultural and historic, and that's Dean and Jen. And the only person who volunteered for climate change and resistance, well, based on who was left, Meg was the only one left who didn't have one, and she had put down climate change and resiliency, and so I signed up there, so at least we have a committee of 2. We didn't want to leave any committee with just 1, or any work group with 1. Now, we did our best. I know some of you may not like where you are, I don't know, and please, you're welcome to ask questions. But we felt this was a good balance between what committee or board you represented, with what areas of interest you had put down that you was your preferences, and then also looking at how we should combine some of the areas together to reduce the number of work groups, because 10 seem to be maybe too many when you look at some of the logistics of doing meetings and so forth. So I don't know if anybody has questions or comments, or.
I'm fine with it.
I just wanted to say, a question and a comment. The comment, even though I didn't get what I want, I think that's part of the plan here, is that you can't satisfy everyone. I'm actually I'm satisfied in the end. I didn't get my top choice, but I think this makes a lot of sense. That's my comment. My question is, when should we start meeting? And should that be as soon as possible? And obviously it has to be an open meeting. Who can we get help with, if anyone, in terms of the logistics of that? I chair a committee, so I know the process of starting an agenda with the town clerk, yada, yada. So I just want to know the timeline of when we should begin our work. Should we wait for the assessments and the data from the Barrett Planning Group and kind of read that before we start to meet?
Yes.
We'll take direction from Judy.
Yeah, that's the plan. The function of the working group is to review the documents and provide comments to us. So,
And Judy, you're going to walk us through with the form and that process with the form.
send everything, we'll send the form, and it'll be, I mean, we can talk about it at the next meeting, but the form is really self-explanatory.
That's not on the Dropbox yet, is it?
No, it's not. We're
Okay.
going to submit it with the report.
And Andrew, to your question of open meeting law, because we do want to make sure each of the work groups follows that. So Patrick very graciously has offered to help with that.
Yeah, so I'll
And
coordinate.
I
that with the
can help
secretary.
as well, by the way, too.
Great, thank you all.
So Judy, when do you think you'll be sending out the material? I think on the schedule. So our next meeting is February 22nd, but you'll be sending that out before the February 22nd?
Yeah, my goal is February 11th, but I have a feeling it's probably going to be more like the following week. It's just a lot of work, a lot of editing, there's several people involved. You're trying to get documents down to a consistent voice, and there's maps that still have to be made. It's just, I'm not making excuses. I'm just telling you, it's probably going to be the following week, but it will definitely be before your next meeting.
So, and certainly the open forum is March 16th.
That's correct.
So any changes have to be made before March 16th.
Well, we need to be told about them. We're not going to
Mhm.
release, people don't need to see those documents for the public meeting. We're going to be doing kind of a findings and observations report. So yeah, I mean, the sooner we get corrections, or like we screw something up that's really obvious, just tell us. But that's just let us know. But again, you're doing kind of a factual review. You're like, did we get something wrong?
Right. So this has nothing to do with recommended.
Oh, God, no. We're
changes,
nowhere near there.
So just so everybody know that this is really just looking at what information, what data analysis that they have made or they have gathered, and making sure that they got everything right.
Yeah,
And-
there's a piece of of each document toward the end that's sort of an identification based on where we sit, of what we think the issues and opportunities are per element. And we want feedback on that too. But I'm just saying, most of this is really, it's the snapshot of who you are today.
Yeah, but
But
there'll be
that's the launching point for, and based on what other communities are doing, based on American Planning Association practices in planning, based on state policy, based on whatever, these appear to be issues or things that we've heard in the engagement process. These appear to be issues that the town needs to address in the plan, and here are opportunities to do so. And you get to weigh in on whether you think we got it right or not.
so that'll be in this go around. Will be right.
Yeah, but there's no recommendations.
Not recommendation, just opportunity. Yes.
You try to use these documents to sort of point in a direction for where the plan is going, but you're not making recommendations. And the pointing is coming from based on what we think we've heard. And, we want to know if we heard it right or if we're missing something. And that's where you guys are the experts. So,
And each of the work groups can report back to the committee as a whole
oh yeah, sure.
on our February 22nd meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That
I
would
mean,
be-
people may not have read all the
And-
documents, but I don't know everybody's work schedule, but I mean, we certainly should talk about them.
Yeah. Andrew?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I don't know if we're going to have time, it depends on when the documents come in, to read them, digest them, have a report ready, but we should discuss them, to Judy's point, right? And then, but definitely have a report at some point back to this committee.
Yeah, and you guys don't need to write a formal report. I mean, fill out the comments resolution matrix and we can go over that.
Sure.
But really, you're reading a document and you're providing comments to us about things that are missing, things we got right, whatever. But you
But
don't
it
have
might
to.
be, it might be good if each work group could report their overall sense of what they saw as well. That might be-
Absolutely, but I'm just saying they don't have to write a report.
Right.
Yeah, so I just have a question. So let's say we get these reports or we get this information ready for the group by February 15th. Obviously, that's, a very initial review by or a look at them by February 22nd. We do have our second community forum scheduled or tentatively scheduled for February 16th.
March.
March 16th. Thank you. Jeez.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
I couldn't make that one. So that is something to keep in mind. We do have that that's in the future. I don't know if we want to think about a timeline now. We don't have any of that information in front of the board in terms of getting reports back to you on that inventory assessment, or is that kind of rolling, however you want to do it?
No, I mean, we'll set a deadline. It won't be
Okay.
artificial, but it will be a deadline and
Okay.
we'll be reasonable.
But it'll
Okay.
probably be before March 16th or,
Yeah, I would think so. I
Sure.
mean, yeah.
yeah, I mean, you have to get
Okay.
all, yeah.
Judy, why don't you give a couple of examples of the kinds of information that are found in the inventory? So let's say in housing, like what percentage of the housing is single family versus multifamily? That's a
Yeah.
fact.
It's a profile of the housing stock. So what's your housing comprised of? How much of it's new? How much of it's older? Is the housing different in different parts of town? The changes in the character of housing from one end of town to another tell a story about how the town evolved. So there's probably going to be some, not duplication, but a connection between some of the content in the housing section and say the cultural resources piece. And we actually want that integration to take place. The housing element might also look at how newer homes are different from older ones in terms of size, in terms of land use, in terms of amenities and so forth. There's a lot you can pull out of an assessor's database to get a picture of how housing is changing. You might look at how housing prices have changed. You might look at how neighborhood forms are changing. And I'll give you an example. Some towns we work in are still seeing a lot of subdivision activity. Other towns I work in haven't seen a subdivision in decades. And so, the kind of lot pattern is different. And those things they all matter. So those kinds of things would be addressed in the housing piece. And then also, how does the town regulate housing development? So every section is going to have something in it about how does the town regulate X. So economic development, it's the same way. It's, what does your labor force do? Meaning you guys. The labor force is the residents of the town. Where do you work? How do you get to work? What kinds of industries are you employed by? What are the industries in your community? What are the opportunities for people who live in Walpole to work in Walpole? Is there a disconnect between where people go to work and where people are coming from to work?
And a lot of the information is from the US Census.
Well, it's some, but
Yeah.
we look a lot of sources. For the economic development element, there's a lot of data from a state agency called the Executive Office of Labor and Workforce Development. So we'll do typically something called location quotients, and we might compare the structure and size of your economy to that of some larger reference economy. How much are you like the county that you're located in versus perhaps the Boston metro area? And what appear to be the trends regionally that the town might be able to take advantage of. So there's a lot of stuff, like every single element has coming from a variety of information. And local, of course, obviously. I mean, we make rich use of assessors' data, library construction needs assessments that often public libraries have wonderful reports on their users, the demographics, what kinds of how the market's changing in demand for books versus other types of materials, who's using the library. Senior centers also provides annual reports to the state on their volunteers, their users, the kinds of programming that they're doing. We look at all that stuff. I mean, Pat, you'll probably remember early on, you helped us pull together a bunch of data. We look at, in a public facilities element, we might look at, well, what's happening with water consumption? You know, we have public water supplies. What are you reporting to the state? How many users do you have? How much water are you pulling? Are you consistent with your Water Management Act permit? You know, when do those things have to be renewed? So there's lots of sources of information, and, you know, you do your best as a consultant coming in from outside of town to find the information you need. Sometimes you just don't get it. One of the best gold mines I have found on any town is the most recent bond prospectus. So you know how all your towns issue general obligation bonds periodically to build public buildings or whatever. We have to put a whole snapshot of the town together for the credit rating bureaus like Moody's or Standard and Poor. There's so much stuff in those reports. It's just like, there's a gold mine. So I just tell you this because it's a lot of information coming from a lot of different levels, local, state, regional.
But for the most part, they're facts. So it seems that, to me, that the focus of the working group would be to look at those facts and then to say, what does that imply? Is that an issue to be addressed? Is that an opportunity? Is there a problem? Do we need to take care of this? Do we need to think about it more? And then, you know, there'll be that initial thinking on the part of the team about those things, but then you might want to take a closer look, coming from the inside, having a deeper understanding of the town, and one that is more of an experience that's, you know, and helping to interpret those facts.
Right.
So I'm wondering if we need to schedule a couple of meetings to have the work groups report back, because I think that discussion
Right.
to the whole committee would be very valuable. You know, when you start looking at conclusions, what are you seeing in the facts? What are you seeing in the opportunities? So that might be something we consider, you know, as we look out at our meeting in February, and then that in March, that maybe we do 2 meetings and divide them up. If that, what do other people think about that?
That's fine. When are we going to have the reports?
Mid-February.
Mid-February?
Yeah.
And then I also want to make sure, so again, these are open meetings, so anyone's welcome to attend them. So if you're not on one of the work groups that you really want to be on, you're free to also attend it. We're not trying to stop anyone from being involved in this at all. It's more, we just want to make sure that there's a minimum of people who are actually taking each of the sections, each of the elements, and you know, reading over the you know, the material and giving it its due diligence and doing its fact checking. So
I think, Phil, with that being said, if somebody didn't get the category of the group they wanted, then I think all the other members should encourage them, if they want to sit in on the one they wanted, they should.
Sure.
yeah, there's no these are all open meetings, so there's no problems in doing that. Yeah. So again, we're not trying to, you know, we want to do this totally in a very open way, and we want to be very inclusive and get as much input. Jen?
If someone can't make the meetings, because I don't know if people are like me, I have meetings almost every night of the week, every week, but they still have a comment. How would it be emailing to the 2 people? I don't want to violate open meeting laws by sending an email, but how would people be able to give feedback if they can't make the meeting?
Can I make a suggestion? Because to avoid the open meeting law issue, send the comments to Pat and let Pat send them to the working group.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
And all of us will have that form that we can fill out and send through Pat to the work group, and then they can see whether we've already had those comments. So a lot of the comments will be based on looking at the fact, you know, the wrong street name or whatever. Other things may be more interpretation of things, and you know, that's a broader thing. Janet, thank you for joining. I just want to acknowledge that you're joining our meeting now.
You're on mute, Janet.
Sorry, got tied up.
That's okay. Welcome.
Thank you.
So Pat, I think following up on this meeting, you might want to just send an email out to everybody just to clarify who's on what. And send it to us too, so we're clear.
Yeah, no, I'll send out the form to everybody probably tomorrow morning, and then I'll post it in the community's Dropbox.
Right. Yeah. Are you all able to access the Dropbox, by the way? You are, okay. I'm hoping so, because I can tell you right now, the inventory document's gonna be big. So we have to put it there. There's no way we're gonna be able to email it. I think what we might do for this kind of first round is we'll probably put the maps as separate PDFs instead of integrating them into the documents, so that when you go to print something, you know, I don't know what kind of printers you have at home, but sometimes people will say, I can't print this document, it's just too big. So we'll keep the maps out. We'll refer to them in the text by map number, but we won't actually put them in the report. We'll have them separate. You'll have them, they just won't have them in the document.
I
Sounds
like
good.
Nell's recommendation that people that didn't get what they wanted be encouraged to attend that meeting, because it only makes the conversation richer.
Right.
Yeah, we weren't trying to exclude anyone, but we don't want to bombard everybody with, of too many meetings. So this way it allows you to be focused on your area. But it also gives you the opportunity to attend other meetings, and it doesn't mean you have to attend all of them. So we would look to the work group to actually schedule the meeting and, follow the open meeting law with agendas and minutes and so
Right.
forth.
Right.
Anybody have any other questions or comments or? So I just want to, and Judy, do you have anything else you want to add before we?
We're fine.
Under this same agenda item, I just wanted to also bring up one other question I have that somebody asked me. So at our last meeting, we were going to take the time to go around to all the committee members and see what each of us thought. We didn't do that, right? We ran out of time. I can't remember what the first agenda items were, but we got off on other things. But Andrew reached out to me that might be still a good thing to do, because it's good to give us all a chance to say, why we want it to be on the committee, what we want to get out of it, what do we want, what do we think the master plan should focus on, or, our thoughts on that. So I think that still would be a good thing to do as well. So to make that happen, we may need to schedule another meeting. That's the downside of all this, is it might mean more meetings. So maybe, I don't know if people want to decide now or give me input by email. But Judy, I don't think we could cover that in February 22nd. It would have to be a meeting that we schedule sometime before then. So we don't have a lot of time, unfortunately, to do other meetings. So the next 4 weeks. But that would be what it would be. Maybe meeting in 2 weeks to see if that's at all possible.
I think that's entirely up to you folks.
Yeah, so I'm going to put it out to the committee. Would people like to do that? Have another meeting within the next 2 weeks? The purpose of which would be to go around and have a more open discussion about what you think should be in the plan, or what's your take on the master plan, or what's important to you, or your observations on what's happening in Walpole, what should happen. Katie?
So personally, I think at our first meeting, we introduced ourselves and we all said why we were there. I think it's not, and I mean no disrespect to anyone when I say this, but I don't think it's about us. I think it's about the greater population of the town and making sure we get the input from them. I think we can have our vision and what we want, but I think that's the whole reason we're doing this, is to make sure we get a broad spectrum of the community participating. And I think that although it's nice to hear why everyone wants to do it or what you might want, I don't think that's the purpose of the steering. I think the steering is to make sure that there's a diverse group of people on the steering committee and that we gather information from a broad spectrum of the community so that it's a true survey of the entire community and what the vision for the future is, not just a small targeted vision. So I don't think we need, personally, that's just me, I don't think we need to do it. I think we did that the first meeting.
Katie, that's a perfect example of the one of the potential answers to what do you want the plan to achieve. So
but I think that's our responsibility morally. That's not my personal, that's our moral responsibility, is to make sure that this is a broad spectrum of the community and the survey is from them. So that's what I'm trying to say. I don't think it matters why we're here, if we have an agenda or don't have an agenda or have a goal, or, it's about representing the entire community.
Yeah, and I don't think it's that we have an agenda or a goal. I think it's more that all of us, we're charged to take all this information and to take, all the survey results and come up with a coherent plan. So there's a lot of us with our knowledge structuring that and building that plan. So it's that dialogue can just be good for us to understand what people think, and as a way of furthering our own thoughts on things and information gathering. But again, I leave it up to the group. Does anybody else have a strong, Andrew?
I just want to be clear. I didn't suggest to Phil that we have another meeting.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put you in that predicament.
But no, let me just comment off that. So I guess what I said to Phil was I myself conducted a kitchen conversation earlier this month, and I realized, gosh, we never really did this amongst ourselves. And to kind of reflect on what Katie just said, I agree with a lot of what Katie just said. It's not an either or. It's not either you get a broad survey with broad participation from the town, or you, among the 13 of yourselves, give your own opinions and opine. I don't think it's one or the other. I think what some people call an agenda, other people call leadership. And we're here as leaders, as appointed leaders from town boards. And it's important in this open forum that we talk about our vision for the town. Otherwise, what's the point of the master plan steering committee if we just are completely silent? Now, it's not all about us. And that's where I completely agree with Katie. We're going to take input from the town, but if we never reveal our own thoughts, like in response to the kitchen conversation questions, then I don't know what we're doing here, And so I'm not saying we have to have our own kitchen conversation, either right now or on February 22nd. And I'm definitely not saying we should have necessarily another meeting. What I remarked to Phil is to say at some point when we meet together, I'm fine stacking it on top of future meetings. I'm not in favor of adding new meetings. So whether it's February 22nd or before or after the forum on March 16th or whatever, I think it behooves us, maybe after we read the input, the assessment from the Barrett Planning Group, once we've been educated, right? And once we've kind of digested that information, maybe we have just a frank conversation about the vision and the elements of the master plan that we, as leaders from various committees, bring to the table. It doesn't mean we're ignoring all the input from the town. Again, it's not one or the other. It's both. And I think that's, frankly, in the effort of transparency, because if we're going to be voting on and crafting this master plan, but we never talk about what we, the 13 of us, think should be in it, then that's not transparent. And so that's my suggestion to Philip. Take it with what you will.
And I actually thought we were trying to do that last meeting, and we never got to it. And I know we went around the very first meeting, but I felt at that point in the process, I don't really think we were grounded in what we were doing, and we were all just getting started. So I don't think it was as maybe as thoughtful as now that we have the experience with the meetings we've had, the conversations, talking to more people, seeing more about what is in the master plan. So, and I apologize for saying about another meeting. I was just trying to figure out how to fit it in. That was what came up there. So if we can do it and piggyback another meeting, that may be the easiest way to do it. I don't know how much of an agenda would be on the February 22nd meeting. So why don't we keep that as an open item? Why don't you, if other people have opinions or someone wants to say right now what you think?
Well, if I may, I kind of think that we can piggyback on the thing. And in terms of why I think we're here, I think we're here to steer, and that's what it is, a steering committee. I think that we should be kind of getting the information in and taking it and saying, look, we need to have zoning looked at. The zoning needs to be, the bylaws are outdated, need to be updated. I don't think that we should be updating the zoning bylaws or doing any of that. I think that's a committee to be formed to be doing it down the road.
Yeah, we're not going to be updating zoning bylaws.
I don't think anyone here should be having an agenda. I don't know anyone well enough to know if there is an agenda. Everything that I'm kind of concerned at, or here at the board, is we should be looking at everything at 30 or 50,000 feet. We shouldn't be getting lost in the minutia and just directing that, like I said, with the zoning. then the town should form a zoning board to rewrite the zoning bylaws. Or the town should do something in terms of the housing and get that board and that input. They should be working on that. We shouldn't be working on that stuff.
Yeah, no, John, I think you're absolutely right. We would not be rewriting zoning bylaws. That's something far beyond our scope. We're at the, like you said, the 50,000 foot level. But I want to just say one other thing, that I think it's those discussions also are good because they help all of us maybe form our own opinions or find, or think about things more broadly. There may be things we come in thinking one way, and with those discussions, we think a different way. So it's just good to have that different exchange of information. My concern has been that our committee, it's, first of all, it's hard to do some of these things over Zoom. You miss out on some of the ability to kind of just chat before or after meetings or whatever. But also, we tend to do so much procedural business things that we don't really get a chance to talk about the real essence of what a master plan is and what the content should be. So every opportunity we have to do that, I think, is a plus. And we will be making some major decisions as we look through, our observations and recommendations. Again, Judy's going to be giving us a lot of suggestions and things, and there'll be a lot of discussion around those and how we prioritize them or how we stage them. So that'll be an important part we do later on. So, so we have the February 22nd meeting. Maybe we can do some of that then. We wanted the work groups to report back so we can see how we do all those things. Maybe we combine them. I'm not sure people want to do another meeting, so maybe I'll retreat from that humbly. So
That should poll us.
Well, yeah,
You should ask everybody.
I think your idea is a good one, Phil.
Yeah, I agree.
Puts context to everything we're doing.
So who would like to have another meeting in order to have that more in-depth conversation as we go around? Do we want to show of hands? Who would like to?
One.
I'm not opposed for it. I think we can handle it.
Like is a strong word. Like and willing would be the better word.
I'm willing.
Who would be willing to do that? First of all, look and just make sure you see the value of it, right? Because we're spending a lot of our own personal time doing this, so we don't want to do a meeting where there's if people don't think there's a purpose, and obviously some of us do. So I didn't really quite see a good show of hands. So who would be willing to have another meeting to do this exercise?
Why don't you call names? Phil says yes.
Okay.
John says yes.
Dean says yes.
Let me just call. Why don't we do this as a form, because we're doing it on Zoom? Bear with me on the. Okay, so I'll read your names. Yay or nay. Dean.
Yay.
Carrie.
Yes.
Andrew.
Yes.
Janet.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Jen.
Yes.
Donnell.
Yes.
Katie.
No.
And myself, yes. So I guess we work with Judy and Pat and see if we can schedule another meeting. Now, Judy, is there something you need to be at? I'm just trying to make it easier for you.
I don't think so. I think you guys should have that discussion, and
I mean, not that we don't want you there, but I know how busy you are. So
yeah, I think that's a discussion you guys should go ahead and have.
We can formulate some prompts for the discussion
okay.
to focus it.
Yeah. Okay. So we didn't really make a motion on that, but informally the vote was, I guess it was 8-1.
So Phil,
Yes.
may I make a suggestion? So
Yes.
if the board, if the committee wants to go that route and have kind of a meeting just for this topic, I can send out just a form or a kind of a poll just to throw out some dates and kind of report back. I don't know if we want to have that before February 22nd or not. Obviously, everyone has their own committees that they are a part of as well. So I don't know if that works for you.
Yeah, I think doing a poll would make sense, and maybe you should do some dates after the February 16th.
Sure.
Maybe it's not entirely
22nd.
urgent. It has to be before that.
Yeah, I can add a few. I can add a couple
Yep.
days before the 22nd, a few after, and just.
Yeah. And we'll see if we can work out that. Is that good with everyone?
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm gone the 31st through the 10th.
Okay.
Of February.
Yes,
Yeah, because February
Yeah.
16th isn't that far away. So,
You're going someplace fun.
yeah.
I hope.
Yeah.
Oh, it's COVID crazy, so we'll see. Supposed to be going to the BVI, but hopefully I'll get there.
Yeah.
So with that, I would now like to have us approve the minutes that we have 4 meetings to approve minutes of. So I'll just ask first if anybody has any comments or changes to each one of these. So if you have a change, each one just, speak up. So
I have one,
okay,
Bill, on the meeting. Let's see. I think it was the last meeting, no, December 28th, for who could not be at the meeting for February 22nd. My name is listed with Mike, I guess, McGrath. And I was not the person that couldn't make it.
Was
I
it
think
Jen?
it was me,
It was Jen, yeah.
Okay.
but I can now make it. So
Go.
Ah.
Scratch that name off.
so Patrick, you can take care of that change.
Yep, no problem.
And I'll just go through the dates. Do anyone have any changes on the October 5th meeting?
Nope.
November 8th, December 28th, and January 4th. So I'll just make a motion that we approve all 4 meeting minutes with the.
If I may, Bill, I have to abstain from the October 5th one because I don't even think I was on the board.
Okay.
You were.
Okay.
And I should abstain from the last one because I wasn't there.
Yeah, okay, so that might mean we need to do an individual vote on each one. So why don't we do that? We'll make it very quick. I'll read off your names for each one. Okay, we'll do this officially. So this is for the minutes of October 5th. Dean? Approve. Of Ash, myself, yes. Carrie?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes,
John?
yes,
Jennifer?
yes.
And Donnell, excuse me,
Abstain.
abstain, yep, and Katie?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 701, if I have that right. Approved. And now the minutes for November 8th. Dean?
Approve.
Carrie?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Janet?
yes,
John?
yes,
Jen?
Yes.
Donnell?
Yes,
Katie?
Yes.
And myself, yes. So that would be 900 approved. And then 2 more, December 28th. Dean,
Approve.
Carrie,
Yes.
Andrew,
Abstain.
Janet,
yes,
John,
yes,
Jennifer,
Yes.
Donnell,
yes,
Katie,
Yes.
and myself. So that's 801 approved. And the last one, January 4th. So Dean,
Approve.
Carrie,
Abstain.
Andrew,
Yes.
Janet,
yes,
John,
yes,
Jen,
Yes.
Donnell,
yes,
Katie,
Abstain.
and myself, yes. So that should be 702 approved. So does anybody have any other last comments or questions before we adjourn? I want to thank you all for attending tonight. Again, I want to thank Judy and Delphine and Fiona for attending and all of what you're doing. And thank Patrick and thank Stephen for their support. And Patrick has been such a big help for our committee and doing so much of the work in the background. So we really thank him for that. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Our next meeting will be scheduled meeting is on February 22nd, and then we're going to be trying to make the other meeting, and that will be the before or after. We'll see what that comes out. So I have a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Second.
And Dean
Aye.
and Carrie,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Donnell,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
and myself, yes. So it's 900. So again, thank you all, and have a very good night. Thank you all.
Right.